Hey, welcome guys. Tony Porter, Cards and Dice TV, and I had some struggles with actually the third video I did about this topic. This topic is going to be um, when to play the infield in on our tabletop games. A lot of guys ask about this question. They don't totally know how to do it. One thing I can say is that you don't need to do it very, very often. This is not something you do every time there's a man on third base. So this I would say is a little bit of an outlier, more of an outlier in our games than anything else. Something that occasionally will happen, something peripheral, something that, if you forget to do it, it's not the end of the world. It could be the end of the game, but it's not necessarily the end of the world. So I'm going to talk to you in general. I'm going to go over infield in. I'm going to talk to you about the pluses, the minuses, and then some factors that play a role in my decision making as well. Now, this is probably for guys transferring from other sports into baseball. Like if you were a hockey or a baseball guy, a basketball guy for a long time, and now you're starting to roll baseball, and you may not feel really totally comfortable with certain aspects of it. This may be one of those aspects, and this is meant to give you some insight into playing the infield in. All right. First, a disclaimer. When you play the infield in, there is a risk involved, and the risk is going to be giving up a base hit. The goal of the infield in is keeping the runner at third base. So it's only going to happen when you have a runner at third base, and the goal is to keep him there, not necessarily to throw him out. Okay, so if it keeps him there, you've basically accomplished, your goal. You want to minimize the chances for that run to score. So this is going to happen in close games, right? You should never, and I've had this done to me in one of the leagues I play in. A manager that's no longer with us. He was up 6-0. It must have been the sixth or the seventh or the eighth inning, and he brought the infield in to prevent a run. I can't understand. I was so baffled and stunned that I didn't bother to say anything because it wouldn't make any sense. So you don't do that when you're up late in the game by several runs. Not even if you're up by a couple of runs, because what you're risking is a base hit and a bigger inning. Okay, that's the danger. So when you bring the infield in, and you can look at the information box that I have on the screen, with the infield in, your batting average against, right, the team you're facing, is going to go from 296 to 366, or about 70 points. It's going to increase by 70 points. So your 296 hitter is suddenly a 366 hitter. Okay, your 230 hitter is suddenly a 300 hitter. Your 330 hitter is suddenly a 400 hitter. Okay, so it's going to increase by 70 points. So you're running the risk of giving up a base hit and leading to a snowball effect where now you're going to have a big inning against you. And this is not good. You want to avoid that, right? So definitely I want to point that out. But the advantage of the infield in is that it's going to minimize by about 14% the chances of that run from third scoring. So if you're trying to minimize that, if you definitely need to prevent that run from coming in, you're going to bring that infield in with that runner on third, and you're going to get just a 15% chance of. So it's not a huge effect, but sometimes it'll make a difference. And let me show you one of my hacks, or one of my home brews that I use for both teams. I play 90% solitaire, right? So I have to have certain rules when I'm going to bring the infield in. And what I normally do is, after the seventh inning, in a game where you're trailing by, let's say, 3 runs or less, right? You don't want to widen that gap anymore. It's already 7th inning or later, okay? If you're winning by a run and the runner's on third base, you don't want the team to tie it, or if the game is tied and you don't want the team to tie it, you're going to bring that infield in. Okay? So what do I do is, with nobody out, I automatically hold my runner at third when the infield is in. If the infield is not in, obviously I'm taking off on a ground ball because the defense is conceding that run. Okay, so my homebrew rule that I want to share with you guys that makes my life much, much easier. With nobody out, I'm holding the runner at third. Now you're thinking to yourself, well, if I have, a very speedy Lou Brock type, Bert Campaneris type, Ricky Henderson type, and he's at third, hey, I'm going with nobody out. That's fine. That's up to you. And you can make a rule that if you have a very fast guy, a top base stealer, a guy that you know is a great base runner, then he automatically goes. I don't do that to simplify my life, and plus I'm playing the percentages. The percentage is what I'm looking at. I still have an opportunity to get a hit with the next batter, right? Or the next two batters can come up with a hit, or the next batter can hit a sacrifice fly, or he can hit a ball through the infield, or he can hit a grounder, or an error. There's a lot of different ways that I can still score that run by playing it safe and holding him with nobody out. Okay, now my rule continues, the homebrew rule continues. With one out, he automatically goes unless he's a very slow runner. If he's a very slow runner, then he is going to hold up like a catcher who's very slow, and so on and so forth. Those guys automatically hold up, and I usually have it fairly clear who those runners are. Most often, 90% of the time, it's going to be your average guy is going to go, your speedy guy is going to go with one out. Okay, so that's my homebrew rule that stands, whether it's my team or the other team. That's how I play it. And there may be a play at the plate. So if the infield is in and the game engine calls for a play at the plate, well, with one out, I was going. But with no outs, if the game engine says, oh, the throw is home, I immediately do what with it? I immediately throw it to first. That's how I play. That one particular homebrew saves me a lot of headache, speeds up my game for me, and I don't have to start I don't have to start doubting myself. Am I being fair to both teams? All right. So let's go over. We already went over the data here. So let me then look at something else very quickly. Okay, here are the infield in can preserve a victory, and we've talked about that. Bringing the infield in is do or die. So it's usually keep it to that situation like I explained, where this run is going to be a big factor in you either winning the game or losing the game. So keeping this run from scoring is going to be a big factor in helping you win the game or keeping the game within reach. Okay, that is totally realistic to do that. So what you don't want to be is every time there's a runner on third, bring the infield in, because again, you're giving up 70 points. And the reason that happens is that the infielders are so close, and you can see that here in the diagram to the right, the green field to the right, they're in on the grass. When you're in on the grass, you're cutting down on the fielder's ability to get to the ball. So if it's a hard hit ball through the hole, the minute he moves over, it's by him. Okay, now if you look at, in contrast to the standard infield depth, to the left side, the fielder is going to have a lot more time to back up a little bit on the ball, maybe dive for the ball, maybe take a few steps and get that ball and keep it in the infield. Okay, but again, playing back, you're not going to have a chance for the guy going home. Playing in, you will. Okay, so that's why you're going to play the infield in, is to prevent that run. Now, I just want to check with my notes and make sure I'm not forgetting anything that I really want to talk about. So think about infield in after the 7th inning, and to prevent that extra run that is either going to put the game out of reach for you, or is going to prevent the opposing team from tying the game. You definitely want to prevent that, or from going ahead, right? You definitely don't want them to go ahead with that run. So if it's 3-3 in the 8th inning and there's only one out, you're going to bring that infield in, because now the thing that kills you with the infield in is you lose the double play opportunity. You may have a double play that's going to go like, for example, 5, 2, 3, but those don't happen very often. They're hard to really to get those. You have to hit the ball right on the nose. It has to be right at the fielder. He has to come home with it, and there has to be a good throw from the catcher. The base runner can't be too fast either. There's an angle problem with the catcher throwing to first, so you're not going to see a lot of those double plays. I've had those done to me, unfortunately, in big games, but so be it. So, okay, so I want to talk to you about another situation that's going to rise a lot. And there's certain factors that you also need to consider. Who's the batter? If the batter, and who's the pitcher? If it's a fly ball pitcher, right, like a Tom Browning. Tom Browning gives up a lot of fly balls. Then, what will I do in that case, right? How does that change my strategy? If the batter is a guy who strikes out a lot, okay, so I may not worry so and hits a lot of fly balls. Then why am I running the risk of giving up a base hit by bringing the infield in? Okay, if I have a great pitcher like a Tom Seaver in his prime, does it matter if I give that extra run up early in the game? Right now I'm talking about early in the game, okay? So let me be clear about that. Not later on in the game in the scenarios that I spoke about in the first part of this. In the second part of this, it's basically if you don't have a great pitcher and it's in the first inning or the second inning, and you know that if he has a bad inning, you're going to have to pull him by the third, by the third inning. And that's going to be a problem. So that's one thing. Now, if Tom Seaver's starting and he gives up a couple of runs, no big deal, because he's going to settle down. He's going to hold him for the rest of the way. But if you have a guy that doesn't have good strong endurance, he may get knocked out by the fifth or the sixth. You don't want him knocked out immediately. So here's a scenario. What do you do in this scenario? You tell me. A couple of guys get on. Game starts. You have a walk and a double. Now you have second and third. I held the runner at third, by the way, because there's nobody out. There's no reason to rush it. You have three batters that can get a run in from third base. There's no reason to. So I held up the runner. So there's second and third, nobody out. What do I do now at the beginning of the game? The first, second, or the third inning, I haven't scored any runs. It's 0-0, let's just say. I've struggled with this situation, right? It comes up a lot. I struggled with the situation. It comes up a lot. And I started saying, okay, what should I do here? What's the best? And different factors. Who's coming up? Sometimes I'll walk the next batter, okay, to load the bases. I don't like to do that at the beginning of the game, because now suddenly I'm putting three guys on base instead of two guys, and the next guy hits a double, and now he cleared the bases, right? So, and you're back to square one, and you're you're in a much worse situation. You've given up 3 runs, and now you still have no outs and a runner on second. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow that first run to score. I'm going to play the infield back with second and third and nobody out. Why am I doing that? Because I want to get the out. I'm trading a run for an out early on, because I may or may not trust the pitcher to bring the infield in. Okay, there's a lot of different things going on there. But now it gets interesting, right? Okay, so the danger of bringing that infield in is that if it's hit to the right side, okay, great, okay. I didn't get to the infield in yet. Excuse me. I jumped ahead of myself. So I'm going to allow the infield to play back, and I'm going to give up that initial run from third base. Now the danger is if it's hit to the right side, the guy from second goes to third. Now you got 1 out and a runner on third, and the chances are on a fly ball, or if you don't bring the infield in now you're stuck. Because if you don't bring the infield in, now you're down 2-0. At least you got that big first out, which is critical. Because if you bring the infield in with second and third in the early part of the game, innings 1, 2, or 3, and the guy, hits a hard ground ball, it gets through the infield, both runs score, now you're down 2-0, there's still nobody out, there's a guy on first, So that's not a situation you want to be in. And what that's going to do is it's going to basically snowball into a bigger problem, maybe potentially a big inning. You want to prevent that big inning, so I'm allowing 1 run to score for that first out. Once I have that first out, and there's a runner on third because the ball was hit to the right side, and the runner advanced, right? Or there was a sacrifice fly and both runners advanced to right field, both runners advanced. What I'm doing now is I'm going to bring the infield in, okay? Because now I don't want to give up that second run, and that's just the way I found myself doing it. I don't want to give away that second run, generally speaking. So I'm going to bring the infield in, and hopefully it'll be hit to one of my infielders, and he'll hold a third. That'll be out number 2, and that's when I'll push him back and I'll get the third out. And hopefully I can get through the inning with only 1 or 2. The worst case scenario, 2 runs scored. Best case scenario, 1 run scores, and my weak pitcher, my low endurance pitcher, is still okay. He only gave up 1 or 2 runs the most, and he can still settle down in the second, third, fourth, fifth, maybe give me 6 innings, and I'm good to go. Now, none of this matters in with a good pitcher, because he's probably going to strike everybody out anyway. So I would also kind of follow the same pattern as well. I never really want to give up that second run for free. I want him to make it work. Now, if there's a runner on first base, right? So that runner's on third. There's 1 out, runner on third. The next guy walks. Now you have first and third. What I'm going to do now is bring the corners in and leave the middle halfway for the double play. So any ball hit to second base or shortstop, I can turn the double play and get out of the inning, and that is a heavenly scenario as well. So I'm talking just about, that's another hack that I kind of use and that I've thought through. And a lot of times it's based on feel. That's why you've seen me. There's no absolute definite strategy. It's just how you feel. Is the guy who's batting a slow guy? Does he hit into a lot of double plays? These are the factors that play a role. And usually by this time we're in the 4th, the 5th, or the 6th place hitters, and those guys are usually they hit into double plays, and you can get a double play out of it. So that's another kind of hack or approach that I wanted to discuss with you on the infield in scenario. Ultimately, just remember what we discussed. Let's go back to the data here. So it was basically 296 batting average on grounders and short liners when the infield's back. When the infield is in, it's 366, so it goes up 70 points. So you're risking giving up, a hit in this situation, and that's what you have to consider as well. And sometimes that'll happen, sometimes it won't. As long as you hold the runner third, you should be good, and that's ultimately the advantage of the infield in. 15% increase in keeping that runner at third base. So it's not much of a difference. So the difference is really 14 points between one and the other, between the 63 and the 49. Okay, so you have to consider how good a move is bringing that infield in, but you definitely don't just want a bouncing ball to just score a run at the same time. You just don't want to give away a free run. Now, if you have a great offense and you're like really confident, hey, I have a super duper offense, I know these guys get on base, steal bases, they walk, they hit home runs. Hey, listen, give up that second run. It's not the end of the world. No big deal. If you have a strong bullpen and you can bring that bullpen in and you're not worried, give up that second run. Play it safe, play it back. You shave those 70 points off the batter, and that's going to help you, in the long run. So it all depends on the situation. Anyway, that's about it. That's all I want to talk to you about. Hopefully this video came out right. I'm Tony Porter, Cards and Dice TV. Remember to like and subscribe my channel. Click on that little bell so you're notified as to all my videos. And I hope this helped kind of give you some insight and now you can think to yourself, I kind of like that, or I don't like that, and I think I'm going to go in this direction, that direction. Like I said, you never bring the infield in when you're behind. Okay, that's just, it just makes absolutely no sense, because you're risking a big inning and you won't be behind. You won't be ahead anymore. I shouldn't have said that. When the other team is behind, right? When the other team is behind, don't bring the infield in, unless they're going to tie. They're going to tie the game, right? But if you're ahead by 6 runs or 5 runs or 4 runs or 3 runs, why are you bringing the infield in? It makes no sense, because you're risking a big inning, and now you're not going to be ahead anymore. That's what I was trying to say there. I think I took the back door on that, and I don't think I have any more to talk about it. So this is done with 1 or 2 outs, of course, with a runner always on third. It could be the bases loaded. It could be first and third, but the runner always has to be at third base on this, and that's it, guys. And also, know the game that you're playing and how it treats infield in. Some games are very, very tough on the offense when the infield is in. In other words, you don't give up a lot of hits, but there's other games that there's a bigger opportunity to get a hit with that infield in. So you have to also be aware of what kind of game you're playing and how the game and the mechanic of the game treats the infield in condition, or defensive positioning, so you can make a good decision, and you can take on the right strategy. But every so often, it's okay to give up a run. It's early in the game, especially 1, 2, 3, 4 innings. It's early. You can come back, and eventually, if you're not going to come back with at least 1 run, or 2 runs, I don't think you have a very good offense, and you're not going to win that game anyway. So keep that in mind early on in the game. And I believe that's all I wanted to talk about. And this is Tony Porter, Cards and Dice TV. See you guys later. Take care now.